Hey guys, welcome to Wrestling Daze and welcome to another top 10 video. You guys seem to be really enjoying these and I really enjoy doing them as well, and I can't wait to get stuck into this topic because there's some good stuff here, some really good stuff. I want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to Anna Dawes. Anna sent this over on Twitter, and feel free to tweet me your suggestions or leave them in the comments below. I do read them. I want to know what you want us to do video-wise in the future. What top 10s would you like to see? Because we are going to be doing more of these. Anna enjoyed our last one. She said, great video. And said, could you do a top 10 changes and tweaks in wrestling companies that you would like to see? And I really like this suggestion. I've kind of tweaked it a little because I'm only going to focus on WWE. Vince has retired. Triple H is in charge of creative. Steph is co-CEO. So it kind of feels like there's so much opportunity and change that's going to happen anyway. Maybe they'll watch this video. Maybe they will implement some of these changes that we're going to talk about. So yeah, I want to focus on WWE. Let's get straight into this, shall we? So much to talk about. And we're going to start with this. This is one I really believe in. Light Heavyweight Championship, right? Now, I don't know what people's opinions are on this, but I know what my opinion is. And I think the best way that I can explain this, could you imagine if boxing only had a heavyweight title? Could you imagine if UFC only had a heavyweight title? The way that wrestling fans look at like the smaller guys is wrong. The way that Vince looks at the smaller guys is wrong. It's not the way that other sports look at smaller guys. Some of the biggest pay-per-view buys ever, in fact, the most pay-per-view buys ever, are Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, who was not a very big guy. I don't know if you saw him have that match at WrestleMania 24 when he took on Big Show. It looked like Big Show was fighting a child, right? But Floyd Mayweather did 4-point-something million pay-per-view buys. Most ever. I think the second most pay-per-view buys was Floyd against Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, who's a lightweight. Conor McGregor, who would never have been able to fight for a UFC heavyweight title. He would never have got in the door. He's too small. So there's so much love for skill and personality that it doesn't matter if they're monsters or if they're just a little bit smaller than monsters. It makes no difference. And for me, when I think of like light heavyweights or cruiserweights, if you want to call them that, but I'm not a fan of that word. I don't think people really know what cruiserweight means. I think if you're into your boxing, you probably do. But, you know, for example, that's not a term that's used by UFC. So I would go with light heavyweight. I think that's very self-explanatory. You've got your heavyweight champion and your light heavyweight champion. And, yeah, they should be even. It should be the same. It should be that sometimes a show will close with the light heavyweight championship being defended. You know, we've got some incredible smaller wrestlers. We're seeing Tommaso Ciampa at the moment doing some great work, some great promos, and we are going to come to those in a bit. But we had Johnny Gargano that people are hoping is going to return. In the past, we've seen the likes of Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Owen Hart, who never won the WWE Championship. I feel like if you was to give the smaller wrestlers a championship of their own that the bigger wrestlers are not allowed to go after, but it's just there for the smaller guys, and it is as prestigious as the Universal or the WWE, I think that would be a massive, massive boost for wrestling, because there is so much talent and skill and charisma and money to be made. Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, the list goes on and on and on. I'm sure you're sat there thinking of historic, legendary, smaller boxers, smaller UFC fighters, maybe even smaller wrestlers that just never got to the main titles because they were too small. in Vince's eyes. We all know how Vince felt about the smaller wrestlers. So this is something I would really love to see brought in. And it's something that I think Triple H maybe agrees with as well. Because a few years ago, we saw the Cruiserweight Championship and we saw that belt be introduced and we saw it have its own tournament. It had its own show. That's what 205 Live was all about. It had segments on Raw. The problem was it was booked completely wrong. It had its own show. Why? It doesn't need its own show. When it had its own segments on Raw, they used to change the color of the ropes to purple. Why? Why would you do that? It just needs to be treated like everything else on the show. So I really believe in this, and it's something that I would really love to see them introduce. Second, then, let's move on. We've got this. This is staging, but more than staging. It's to do with premium live events feeling special again. And what I will say is they achieved that with SummerSlam this year. They really achieved it with Brock and the Tractor. But I think one of the things that you can do to make things feel big is the staging. I think if people know that every premium live event is going to have a unique set, a unique stage, you can even use the pre-show to unveil it and reveal it. I mean, this is, I think, SummerSlam 2008. It looks like something from a vignette. It looks like something from a poster. It looks like something someone has made on 2K22, but it isn't. That is the stage for SummerSlam 2008, and it looks like a cinema. And it's incredible. There's another example here. This one maybe not as fondly remembered, but still, they went for it. This one, I think, was Cyber Sunday. And the idea of this was that you voted on what matches you wanted to see. So what they did is they got a giant mobile phone. The little fireworks going at the bottom, the pyro, that's where the wrestlers walked out. That is an entrance stage. That giant mobile phone was an entrance stage. So I really feel like WWE, since they went onto the network, since now you don't have to pay $40, $50, $60 for a pay-per-view, they just don't spend the money on their premium live events. For whatever reason, I don't want to say they got lazy, but I think they got lazy. And I think now that it's on Peacock and it's $9.99, watch it if you want, don't bother if you don't want to. They just don't spend the money anymore, or seemingly they didn't. But I do love the stadium shows we're getting now. I give them big props for that. Obviously, stadium shows, Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania. We've had Money in the Bank was meant to be at one, but they moved it. SummerSlam was in a stadium. Clash at the Castle is going to be at a stadium. So they are doing lots of stadium shows, and that's good. That feels big. That feels exciting. So I'm definitely on board with all of that. But I want the set, and I want the staging, and I want that to feel special as well. I really want them to treat premium live events like they used to treat their pay-per-views. Next, we're going to move on, and I think this is going to be a real popular one. I want vignettes. Vignettes. I think vignettes are so important. And if you don't know what a vignette is, it's where basically it's a video package, if you will, to kind of really put over the superstar. So we've seen lots of vignettes for when a superstar is first arriving. You might remember we just saw a lot of vignettes for Edge, where, you know, people thought it might have been The Fiend, and they were like trying to decode it, and then it turned out, you know, it was Edge. So those are vignettes. And these as well, the Firefly Fun House, these are vignettes. These aren't live in the ring. These are pre-recorded, and they really get over the character. And this worked wonders for Bray Wyatt. I mean, this just completely changed Bray Wyatt. And the whole Firefly Funhouse and the introduction to The Fiend and all of that. I think there's so much that you can do. You can really be showing wrestlers' personalities in these vignettes. We just don't get them. I mean, you might get them for, like, if someone's about to debut or if someone's about to return. But other than that, I remember them doing some for, was it Viking Raiders and Street Profits? I think the other year they had some vignettes as they were doing competitions. I remember them throwing axes and all this kind of stuff. A little bit weird, but I think it's a really great way of getting across wrestlers' personalities, and you can feel a deeper connection to the character with vignettes. So this is definitely something that I would love to see them bring back. Next, matches that matter. The reason I've got this picture is because the Brawling Brutes took on the New Day in some version about 15 weeks in a row on SmackDown. It was Pete Dunne against Xavier Woods, Pete Dunne against Kofi Kingston, Ridge Holland against Xavier Woods, Ridge Holland against Big E, Ridge Holland against whoever, Butch, I don't know. They were just constantly changing them around. None of the matches mattered, because if someone won, brilliant. If they lost, or whatever, we're just only going to do it again next week. Nothing mattered. It was endless rematches. It was. I felt like I was trapped in Groundhog Day. So I want the matches to matter. If I'm going to give you my time, the thing that I'm watching needs to matter. It the matches need to count for something. So I'm not saying let's introduce rankings or anything like that. You could go down that road, but you don't need to go down that road. Just make sure that every match has a purpose, some sort of purpose. There's some sort of reason as to why we're getting it, rather than just endless rematches. I would say let's not bother with the rematches, but that definitely feels like something that has changed anyway, so I don't think it necessarily needs to be said. Next, women's secondary titles. So I think they're doing a really good job with the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Championship. They're doing an awful job with the women's tag titles. And of course, that resulted in Sasha and Naomi walking out of frustration. And I also think they could do with one women's mid-card belt that could maybe go between Raw and SmackDown. I think the women need a spotlight on them brighter again than they've got, because if you think about the fact that I know there's not tons of women, but there's definitely enough to support a tag division. There's definitely enough to support a mid-card belt. We just don't get too many women's secondary feuds. You get the Raw Women's Championship feud, you get the SmackDown Women's Championship feud, and then other than that, you just don't tend to really get much else. And the problem you have then is that, when Doudrop comes walking out, or Queen Zelina walks out, or Carmella walks out, no one cares, because you just don't see these people, and they feel irrelevant. They all feel cold. They've not been in any storylines, Shayna, Shotzi. No one cares. No one cares. People want to care, but you've got to give them a reason to care. You've got to keep these women on TV. You've got to involve them in interesting stories. So I really want to see them investing more in those women's secondary titles. The tag titles, definitely. I think you could definitely call up some teams from NXT, and you could definitely create some teams, and you could have an interesting tag division. But as I said, I'd be interested in introducing a women's mid-card belt as well. Next, this one, I really love this. Some of you might never have seen this. The guy on the right, that is Buddy Rogers, the first ever WWE champion. Obviously, here, it's about the 8 years. This is about 20 years after he won it. But the reason why this is here is not because I want Buddy Rogers and Rogers Corner to come back, but I want a weekly, regular TV talk show segment. We do get things like the KO show, Miz TV, Ding Dong Hello, Moment of Bliss, things like that. But I would like a proper dedicated segment that is on every week. And I think Paige would have been great to have hosted it. But I think what you could have done is you could have had, say, Paige host it every week. So every week you get it. Don't know what you would call it. I'm sure you could come up with a creative name in the comments. But Paige could host it. And I think that she could then have a guest on each week. Now, she could bring a guest on that's involved in a feud. That makes sense. But I also like the idea of just some weeks her bringing on a legend. Imagine if out of nowhere, out comes Trish. And she just interviews Trish, and Trish tells us what she's up to and shares some of her favourite memories, moments. It doesn't need to be the longest segment in the world, but I just think that each week you would go into it going, wonder who the guest is this week, and it becomes a part of the show that's quite interesting. It can further storylines. It could start storylines. It can help some of the legends promote, I don't know, if they've got a new DVD out or whatever, or something new on Netflix, or, whatever it might be. Or maybe they use it to bring on some celebrities. Maybe there's some celebrities that come on and that are passionate about wrestling. So, rather than celebrities coming in having matches, maybe they can just go on to that segment instead. And maybe Bad Bunny can talk about his new album on there instead. So I kind of feel that would be something a little bit different. I don't want to see Raw and SmackDown just becoming match. I know that people want to move away from like some of the Vince sports entertainment, and I totally get that. And we will talk about that, but I still want to see some nice variety in there. I don't want it to just be match. You kind of get that with UFC. And that would be a criticism that I would probably have of UFC, is that it can be a bit too match. So, I think a dedicated talk show that's done every week. I would do it by a non-wrestler as well. As I said, someone like Paige. That's why I put this up, because this Rogers Corner, this was hosted by Buddy Rogers 20 years after he'd been champion. So he was well retired by this point. And he would get on like the stars and interview them, and I just think something along those lines could be really, really cool. Next up then, we have got promos, and there's a couple of people I could have gone for this, but I've gone with Tommaso Ciampa. For me, I want promos to feel more impactful. I want them to feel more real. I don't want them to feel as scripted, but I don't mind if they're scripted as long as they are good. Edge does some great promos, but mostly we see a lot of just pretty generic, pretty bland, pretty paint-by-numbers promos. I think the ones that bother me the most are more maybe the interviews backstage. Those ones where you've got, like, I don't know, Kayla Braxton, Sarah Schreiber, and we're just sat, like, backstage, or we're standing in front of that weird half-ring thing, and they're just like, what do you think about the match you've got coming up? And it's all just dull. It's dull. It's boring. It's dull. Tommaso is doing some great promos at the moment. You won't really be seeing them unless you see like the YouTube videos that he's kind of doing them in. He's doing them on like WWE.com exclusives and YouTube and things like that. They don't tend to get shown on Raw or SmackDown, but so intense. He looks down the camera and he's just like, talking to whoever, Logan Paul just before WrestleMania, and I think he's just done one actually to Bobby Lashley. It was really good. It was so good. He was saying things like, but Bobby, MMA fighter. Okay, but Bellator, not UFC. He got to Bellator. And, Bobby Lashley, United States champion. Not WWE champion, but, United States champion. And he was kind of like making fun of him about the fact that, well, he was in the army, but he wasn't a Marine. He was in the army, but he didn't become a Marine. And he said, the point that I'm making, Bobby, is that you always fall just that little bit short, don't you? You always fall that little bit short. Well, I don't. And it was so good. It was so good. And it just felt like it had a purpose, and it was a bit more personal. I really liked it. And I want to see... I think of Eddie Kingston on AEW, and man, he's just doing some fantastic stuff over there. I mean, he makes it feel real personal as well, and I would love to see more of that in WWE. Next up, we spoke about it just actually, so we don't need to stay on this too long, but less of the bad Vince humor. This is Bobby Lashley's sisters segment, infamous segment. It was awful. It was awful. Sami Zayn was in a feud with Bobby Lashley, and he was making fun of Bobby Lashley's sisters. He said he was going to have them on the show, like bring them on the show. And so he brought them out, and obviously it was not them. It was quite clearly some guys in dresses, and then he was like poking fun at Bobby this way. That on paper, this might seem like a great idea. It was silence in the arena. And I remember watching this live, and the chat was not impressed. I wasn't that impressed with it. It wasn't funny. It's one of those, like, when they first come out, you might go, what's this? But after a few seconds, and you go, okay, I see what he's doing, right? That's it. You like to sit and watch a 10-minute segment on it was torture. You know, I remember like Miz and Morrison having tomatoes thrown at them by, I think it was the New Day and someone, maybe even Damian Priest, throwing tomatoes at them. And it's like, we have seen a lot of silly stuff. Do you remember the Revival, FTR? They were shaving each other's backs in the showers. They got them to shave each other's backs, and they actually had the Usos go into the showers and like secretly film them doing it, and then like they used that as a way to embarrass them. And you know, that kind of silly humor needs to go. I'm all for humor. As I said earlier, I don't just want match. I want a nice mixture. I want a talk show. I want some humor, but can it at least be funny? Can it at least be funny? Because a lot of the Vince humor and a lot of the toilet humor that Vince was into was really missing the mark. This is an interesting one, actually, and this is one that I was really trying to think about. How do I get this message across? I want WWE to be more global. Did you know that nearly 60 million people, I think it was like just over 56, 57 million people watched WrestleMania in India? I feel like there's so much opportunity for WWE to go global, and it kind of ties in with what we said at the very start about how premium live events should feel special. I mean, is it not a disgrace that WWE are doing their first major premium live event in the UK in 30 years? 30 years. It's took 30 years. Yes, we've had some pay-per-views here, but they've never been the biggest. But now we finally get a big stadium premium live event. And the thing is, it's not even a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam or a Royal Rumble or Money in the Bank or Survivor Series. It's only one they've just created. I mean, it's still a massive show because it's at a stadium, but it's only one that's just magically appeared out of nowhere. This Clash at the Castle. So I just don't see why you can't do like more of those. Let's go to India in particular, a massive market for WWE. Let's go to Japan. Let's go to Mexico. Let's go to Africa. Let's go to Australia. This is a global brand that is known around the world, but it does tend to stay in America. And I know a lot of my American friends will be like, no, I want it to stay in America, right? It can still predominantly stay in America. You're still going to have it. But I'm just saying that when was the last major show from India? When was the last major show from Mexico? You can't tell me that there's no one watching WWE in these countries, because nearly 60 odd million tuned into WrestleMania in India. Like, selling out a stadium there would be no problem whatsoever. No problem. I know there's the time difference and everything, but this is where I think WWE are maybe just a little bit too focused on America. I know it's their major market, but there is big opportunity here for them. And not only that, there's lots of amazing superstars that could come through. Think of, like, you know, the fact that we keep tapping into that American talent pool, but what about the Rey Mysterio that's yet to be found in India? What about the Stone Cold Steve Austin from Australia? What about The Rock from, like, China or something? Like, these people, these characters, these personalities, they are out there. They are out there. And Triple H, once again, felt the exact same way, because you might remember this slide. Triple H wanted to open NXTs around the world. He wanted one in Mexico. He wanted one in the Middle East. He wanted one in India. He wanted one in China. He wanted to get NXT, not just NXT and NXT UK. He wanted NXTs to go around the world, and he wanted to expand beyond that as well. Now, these plans were actually scrapped, and we never got them in the end. And obviously, he could restart them. I mean, I'm sure he could have a word with Steph, and he could look to relaunch this. This is something else that could absolutely come back. But I think even if it's just one step at a time, and we just, at this stage, just get a major show in India, I think that would be exciting for all of us, because you can't tell me that that's not an exciting image. I mean, could you imagine how the excitement of an Indian premium live event? It would be so much fun. So much fun. I would be really looking forward to it. I remember watching the Superstar Spectacle, I think it was called, or Spectacular. And that was Indian focused. It was shown, I believe, in India, but you could watch it as well on the network. And we watched it, did a watch long for it. And it was so much fun. It was done in the Thunderdome, and it was so much fun. I would love to see more of that by WWE. I think that growing and, you know, really going into and leaning into being a global brand, I think that's something that will repay them many, many times over with the talent they can find and just the growth and the energy from the fan base around the world. Last one then. This is the last one. It's been a long video, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I believe this is number 10. And it's simple. Listen to the fans. In this video, we have spoken about giving the smaller wrestlers their own championship, a big prestigious championship, something to really elevate them. We've spoken about making premium live events more special, staging in particular. We've spoken about the need for vignettes and really trying to get across the wrestlers' personalities. We've spoken about matches that need to matter. Don't keep doing endless rematches. And I think there's some movement on that one. We spoke about giving the women more. Don't just give them the big titles. Give them the secondary storylines as well. We've spoken about a regular talk show. I really like that idea. I think that is definitely something that can also help get, you know, wrestlers' personalities across, but also a bit of surprise. You know, you bring out the odd legend. Who knows? One week you bring out The Rock and he can talk about his latest movie, or you bring out John Cena. Like, it'd be amazing. It would be amazing. Imagine if you brought out Chris Jericho. Like, I know that it would never happen, but he did go on the Broken Skull sessions. Like, he sort of did that. It was on the network. So maybe you wouldn't put him on Raw, but I'm just saying, imagine of the things that you could do. Make sure that your promos are, you know, a bit more personal, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more bite to them. Make sure that we get rid of some of that bad humor, some of that Vince humor, some of that toilet humor. Maybe just get rid of the 24/7 belt altogether. Take it global. Lean into that. Don't be scared of going global. There's so much opportunity out there, and there's so much passion for WWE out there. Why would you just close that door and not go to those fans? You know, when are the people of India going to see the WWE product live? When are the people of Japan going to see the WWE product live? When are the people of Australia going to see WWE live? Even if it's just house shows and it, you know, the Raws and the SmackDowns still come from the same places. Get out there, get going around the world. See if you can get more tryouts in these countries. See what talent you can find. See who you can inspire as well. And then this one, the final one, listen to the fans. The fans, you know, they know what they want and they communicate it in lots of different ways. I'm sure many of you right now are saying, we want Bray, we want The Fiend. And that's a very big one, you know. You only have to go onto Twitter and he's always trending on Twitter. Twitter isn't everybody, though, of course, but it's definitely something that it feels like they ignore. It never feels like they necessarily look or pay attention to Twitter. I'm sure they're aware. I'm sure they do look, but it never feels like they do. And, you know, how long did people want Roman to turn heel? And now he's turned heel. He's just had one of the greatest runs. It's been so, so good. So, and how long did people want John Cena to turn and they would never turn him? And, you know, sometimes you can look at it and go, I get that. He did a lot for Make-A-Wish. So I'm not saying that, you know, they were wrong to not do that or, you know, they were wrong to not turn Roman or whatever. But I think more than that, it just feels like we don't get listened to. It's hard, I suppose, because we all want different things. But I think they could do more. I really do think they could do more. And maybe Triple H. Maybe Triple H is maybe a little bit more dialed in with what the fans want. So maybe you will get more of what you want now. But Even if you're not going to actively listen to the fans, at least make it seem like you're listening to the fans, because it just really, for the longest time, has felt like Vince's company and we're just watching, and that's it. And that's something that I would like to see change as well. So let me know. This video went long, about 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes longer than I wanted. But I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of stuff to get stuck into there. And I hope it got your creative juices going. You'll have to let me know what you would like WWE to address down in the comments below. I really appreciate the support. I hope you enjoy these top 10 videos. Don't forget, we will be back later for Raw. We've obviously going to be around for AEW Dynamite and SmackDown as well. So much coming up. We'll have more of these videos also. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe. Really appreciate the support. And I will see you again next time. Bye for now.